So, welcome. Well, I was going to say welcome back, everyone, to the second session, but there's a lot more people now than there were 40 minutes ago. So, I mean, it's amazing to see so many people excited about experiencing Japan. I've lived and worked in Japan for the last year. I've been working for a Japanese company in Tokyo for a year. So that's been a fantastic experience, and that may be something that you'd be looking to doing after any studies that you do in Japan. So we've now got two speakers who are going to talk to you about opportunities for working in Japan. Might give you some ideas about what you might want to do in the future. The first speaker we've got is Kiko Hill from Disco, which is a recruitment company in Japan. Afterwards, Matthew will be talking about the JET program. But first of all, I'd like to welcome Kiko Hill to talk to you about working in Japan. Welcome, Kiko.
Hi everyone, thanks for coming and welcome to this presentation on working in Japan. As Marty just said, my name is Kiko Hill and I work for a Japanese HR company called Disco. And one of the things that Disco specializes in is Japanese English bilingual recruitment, mainly for Japanese companies wanting to hire foreigners to work in Japan. So just to tell you a little bit about myself, I myself am half Japanese but grew up in the UK. I studied Japanese at university, and then after graduating in 2012, I went to work for Disco in their Tokyo head office for about a year and a half before then transferring back to their London office in January this year. So for anyone who's interested in studying in Japan or living and working in Japan as a foreigner, I myself have been through the process, so would be able to give you some useful feedback, hopefully. The presentation today is going to mainly focus on, first of all, job hunting in Japan, so with a specific focus on current recruitment trends with regards to internationals, as well as a bit of background information on Japanese companies, so hopefully give you some useful background knowledge on job hunting there. And then at the end, I'll also be giving a brief introduction to Disco, what it is that we do and how we can hopefully help you find a job in the future. So, why work in Japan? I mean, what kind of job opportunities are there for foreigners in Japan? Well, the answer is many. Japan as a country at the moment is going through quite a lot of change, including obviously preparations for the Tokyo 2020 Olympics, as well as Abenomics. For anyone who doesn't know what Abenomics is a series of political and economic policies that have been introduced by the current Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. And one of the focuses of Abenomics is to increase internationalization in Japan. So that includes getting more Japanese people living and studying, working abroad, as well as increasing the number of foreigners going into Japan. So if we just take a look at some stats, this slide here shows you the results of an online Disco survey which asked around 1,000 Japanese companies whether they were hiring international graduates or not. As you can see, around 35% of Japanese companies in 2013 hired foreigners, with that number increasing to 48% in 2014. The number of Japanese companies hiring foreigners is particularly high among the larger Japanese companies. So as you can see in the bottom bar charts there, with companies that have 1,000 employees or more, last year around 54% were hiring foreigners, so more than half. And this year, that increased to 69% hiring in 2014. So this year, more than 2/3 of larger Japanese companies were hiring foreigners. As for the reasons why there's been an increase in this demand for global talent, or global jinzai, as they say in Japan, the main reason is very simply, well, the first reason, is globalization. So not just with Japanese companies, but with companies all over the world, as they continue to expand more overseas, build their business empires abroad, they're increasingly in need of people that have international experience, international language skills, and so on, that will allow them to compete not just domestically, but also across borders, overseas, in an increasingly global economy. Another point to mention with regards to Japan is obviously Japan has the world's most extreme case of an aging population. So with that, there are less young people coming into the workforce, there's less demand domestically. So in the case of Japanese companies, it's especially important that they look overseas in order to expand their businesses. And they also need more foreigners coming in to sustain the workforce within Japan as well. One final point, as for reasons why Japanese companies want to recruit foreigners more and more, is this final reason. This is something that we hear a lot from our company clients when we ask why they want to recruit foreigners. And that is that they want to recruit people that can stimulate change from within the company. So what they essentially want are people that have a different set of skills, language skills, people with different backgrounds that will give them a more diverse team. So I think it's true, obviously, not just within business, but in general, the more diverse the team, the broader the range of skills and strengths that are going to be covered by a team. So Japanese companies, more and more, they're wanting people with different assets, different contributions that they can make to the company. This, again, is a slide showing the results of another survey. So this asked the individual reasons given by our companies why they wanted to recruit foreigners. The first, by far most popular answer was to ensure excellent personnel. When I first saw this, I thought it was kind of vague. I didn't really know what it meant. And when we asked the companies what they meant by this, what they basically said was when they think of, a global candidate or global talent, they're not just looking at someone who has international experience or international language skills. They're also looking at someone who has that drive and confidence to go and work overseas. So if you think about going and living or studying abroad, that does take quite a lot of ambition. You're going to be outside of your comfort zone, you're going to be challenged and so on. And what they want are people who have that drive and ambition. Other popular reasons include, obviously, to work with foreign trade partners, to work with foreign branch offices, and also to bring more global thinking to the company. So as you can see, the main focus is very much on this idea of globalization and giving companies the chance to compete in Japan as well as overseas. This here shows the individual skills that Japanese companies typically look for in international candidates. Just before I go on, does anyone know, for example, why these two charts are split into humanities and technical? This represents candidates, so whether they majored in humanities or technical fields. Is anyone familiar? Yes. In Japanese recruitment, it's very common for Japanese companies, well, I say common, it's pretty much all of the time. Japanese companies will split candidates according to whether they majored in a humanities field, so arts, economics, languages, business, and so on, or a technical field, so sciences, engineering, IT. And the reason they do this is because on the whole, Japanese companies think that the kind of skills offered by a candidate tend to be different depending on what someone majored in. So although this is a very big generalization, in general, they find that people who majored in technical fields seem to offer more specialized skills in a specific area. If you think, for example, about if someone needs to build a bridge, it's essential that you have someone who's done engineering and so on, so you need someone with those specific skills. Humanities studies, on the other hand, tend to offer more general skills that are applicable to a broader range of areas. So it doesn't mean that one is more desirable than the other. What it does mean, though, is that if you are going to job hunt in Japan, be prepared to be split according to what you majored in and be able to show your skills. Having said that, though, as you can see, regardless of whether you majored in a humanities field or a technical field, the top 3 skills that Japanese companies look for in international graduates is Japanese language skills, cultural adaptability, and communication skills. So whilst, as we've seen, there is an increasing demand for foreigners to work in Japan, it is very important that you are able to not just do business in English or whatever other language. They need you to be able to do business in Japanese as well, understand Japanese culture, and communicate with the locals in Japan. So these are the kind of skills, as a foreigner job hunting in Japan, you might want to show off to a company. I'll also just mention right now, I forgot to say at the beginning, if anyone would like these slides, I have a sheet upstairs in the booth, which you can come and give me your email address on, so you can have these slides via email later. As for the level of Japanese required by companies, around 75% of Japanese companies require a Japanese level of business level or above. So business level means not as fluent as native, but you know the language well enough to use it professionally in a formal business setting, which leaves around 22-23% of companies wanting to hire people that have just basic conversational level, and only around 3% willing to hire those without any Japanese whatsoever. So the main point here is that the best skill you could give yourself if you are wanting to work in Japan as a foreigner is first of all to learn the language and make yourself bilingual. As for those, if you are interested in working in Japan without learning Japanese, there are some positions that are commonly available, although these are limited to a very narrow range of jobs. And the most common are, first of all, jobs with big manufacturers, so trading companies. Sometimes they hire foreigners who don't speak Japanese. However, in this case, they are looking for people that are very, very specialized in a specific field. So it's normally people that have many, many years experience, to the point where Japanese companies are willing to overlook the fact that they don't speak Japanese because they'd rather have whatever skill set that individual is offering. If you are a new graduate, for example, it's going to be very difficult to get a job at these types of companies because understandably, you're not going to have any work experience. Another possibility is getting a job with a Japanese company that uses English as its language in Japan. So for example, Rakuten, for any of you who don't know Rakuten, Rakuten is like the Amazon of Japan. It's an internet site. And Uniqlo as well, one of the biggest clothing brands in the world. They use Japanese in their they use English in their Japan offices. However, if they had a choice between someone who could speak Japanese and someone who couldn't, they're probably going to pick the person who speaks Japanese. So that's something else to bear in mind. And then finally, another possibility is getting a job that just simply doesn't require Japanese. So for example, teaching English or maybe working with an international banking firm. Sometimes they allow non-Japanese speakers. I personally know quite a lot of foreigners in Japan who, when they first went to Japan, they didn't speak Japanese and they first started out teaching English. Especially if you're a native English speaker, one of the beauties about working in Japan is that there's never going to be a shortage in demand for native English speakers who can teach English. So that's a very common route for people to get into Japan, and then once they've spent a few years there, learnt the language, they can use their time in Japan to then job hunt in other industries. So that's a common route that I see quite a lot of the time in Japan, which would also be available to you. Here's just a bit of a tip when it comes to job hunting in Japan. The two main areas that Japanese companies will typically focus on when they assess a candidate is, first of all, they will look at you as an individual. So they'll look at your strengths, your skills, your interests, your values, and so on. And they will nearly always ask for self-PR, or what they call jiko shokai in Japanese. So what you want to do for a jiko shokai is basically be able to explain to a company, you know, what experiences you've had until now, why you've had the experiences that you've had. So for example, if you've spent a year studying in Japan, why did you choose to do that? They want to know, you know, what's your thought process behind it? And also, very importantly, what have you learnt from your experiences? So it's basically being able to tell them a story of what your experiences are, why you experienced those things, and what you have learnt from them. And the second area that they will focus on is basically you as a candidate being a good fit for the company. So you basically need to be able to show the company not just your own strengths and your skills and so on, but why it is that you want to apply your skills to that company in particular. So preparation, finding out about the company as much as possible, is also very, very crucial to job hunting in Japan. So basically, just to sum up the first part of the presentation, both big and small Japanese companies are now hiring more and more international candidates if they find them talented. You need to be able to do self-PR, you know, jiko shokai, be able to clearly articulate your strengths to them, why you want to work for that company. And also, like I said, the number one skill that you can give yourself to increase your chances of being able to get a job in Japan is to learn Japanese as best as possible. This next part of the presentation is just going to focus very briefly on Japanese companies, give you a bit of background information. I have a couple of questions, or quiz-type questions to begin with. The first is, how many companies do you think there are in Japan? And the second is, of these companies, what percentage do you think have capital of 1 billion yen or more? 1 billion yen is around £5.5 million, for any of you who don't know. So does anyone have any ideas? Don't be shy. Yeah?
Maybe 3 million and 10%?
Both are close, but not quite. The answer to the first question is there are around 1.52 million companies in Japan. Of these, the percentage that have capital of £5.5 million or more are only 0.3%, which means that 99.7% of Japanese companies are smaller companies that maybe aren't less well known. The reason I'm telling you this is because obviously I think in the case of Japanese companies, there are a lot of huge industry giants, very famous all over the world. But these companies only make up a very, very, very minor fraction of the total number of Japanese companies. With the majority of Japanese companies being smaller, less well-known companies, this is where the majority of job opportunities in Japan are. So as a job seeker in Japan, it would be very useful, whilst I wouldn't... Yes?
Sorry, I was just going to ask you about language ability, because obviously you said that that's kind of the main thing they're looking for. But is it a conversational language, or do they expect you to know kind of all kanji as well?
Kanji as well, if possible, yeah. But as I was saying, so the reason I'm telling you this is because if you are job hunting in Japan, whilst I wouldn't discourage you from applying to the larger, very famous Japanese companies, it's very important not to dismiss the smaller companies as insignificant, because this is where the majority of job opportunities in Japan are. Yeah, so most of them are small to medium-sized. Next question I have is, how many companies in Japan do you think are more than 100 years old? Okay, well, the answer is there are over 25,000 companies in Japan which are over 100 years old. I don't know if this sounds like a large number or a small number to all of you, but for companies that last more than 100 years, this is a very, very, very large number of those companies being in Japan. Japan is home to most of the world's oldest companies, and one of the reasons they last so long is because Japanese companies tend to have a very, very, very strong company culture. And traditionally, people that entered the company would join immediately after college or university and then stay with that company for life employment. So very, very dedicated employees. The reason I'm telling you this also is because if you are looking for a job at a Japanese company, it's very important that you are able to show them how you would be a good fit for that company. So if I just take you onto this next slide here, this shows some of the differences between Western and Japanese companies. The most important point for a Japanese company is to hire someone who isn't necessarily the most talented, but someone who is the right fit for the company. So whilst Western companies might typically focus more on your skills and your knowledge, a Japanese company might focus more on your personality. How well would you thrive at this company? Would you be able to complement each other? Another difference is Western companies typically look for someone that can be an immediate asset. So how useful would you be from the get-go as soon as you join? Whereas Japanese companies, again, because of the traditional lifelong employment, they are very willing to train you up and look at your growth potential once you've joined the company. And finally, Western companies, a lot of the time, they will recruit pros of the field, whereas Japanese companies, a lot of the time, they focus more on people that have general skills that can be trained up in various different ways. So all in all, I think the style of recruitment in Japan means that there are more opportunities available to you, because you don't necessarily have to be super skilled in a certain area. As long as you're generally a well-rounded, fairly skillful person, there are more opportunities available to you. However, as I kept saying from the beginning, knowing your Japanese is very, very important to work there as a foreigner. Yeah, so just to sum up again, most Japanese companies are small to medium. Don't overlook those when you're job hunting. Japanese companies have a strong company culture. It's very, very important to try and do as much research into the company philosophy when you apply for a job and be able to explain to that company why it is that you would be a good fit for them. So whether that's to do with your interests or your values or your vision for the future, try and find a way that it matches the company's. And like I said, the best fit for the company is usually more valuable than being the most talented. I'm just coming up to the end of the presentation now. I'd just like to give a very brief introduction to Disco and what it is that we do. So as I said, Disco is a Japanese recruitment company that specializes in Japanese-English bilingual recruitment. We offer a range of services, including educational services within Japan, recruitment services, as well as business training. And what we essentially do is try and connect international job seekers with Japanese and other companies that are looking for global talent. And one of the main ways in which we do this is through a series of job fairs called career forums. Has anyone ever heard of a career forum? Has anyone? Okay, so a few of you have heard. For any of you that have been to the career forums, you will know that they are very different from your typical job fair in the sense that companies that come to the job fair don't just come to do PR and meet with candidates. They also come to give formal one-on-one interviews at the event itself and make hires on the spot. So when I was first recruited by Disco to work in Tokyo, I was actually recruited by them at the London Career Forum in 2012 after I graduated. Just to explain how it works, this is a photo of the Boston Career Forum, which is the largest career forum that we do. This year's Boston Career Forum actually took place last weekend over in the US, and we had around 190 companies and 4,500 job seekers take part. The blue curtained area that you can see, those are each company stands where they're giving presentations, doing PR. And if a company meets someone at the booth that they are interested in hiring, they will take them to the white curtained areas, which are the interview rooms. And that's where they give formal one-on-one job interviews and potentially give job offers on the spot as well. We have them all over the world, including America, here in the UK, in Tokyo, Sydney, China. And basically what they do is, as foreigners interested in working in Japan, they give you a very, very rare opportunity to meet with a number of Japanese companies all at once who are interested in hiring bilinguals. For anyone who is interested in finding out more about the career forums or coming to an event, this is the website for the career forums. It's careerforum.net. And to attend an event, the only two requirements are, as you can probably guess, you need to be Japanese-English bilingual. Your Japanese level can be anything from conversational through to fluent, but you need to be able to speak some Japanese. And the other requirement is that you need to be currently studying or have graduated from a minimum of a bachelor degree. So if you're not going to university or you're still at school, to attend a career forum, you do need to be studying at university or have graduated. So if you are one of those people, then those are the only two requirements. All of the events are completely free. And to attend, you just simply need to go to careerforum.net, create an account or a profile, and then once you've created an account, you can then register for any event that you'd like to take part in. So like I said, we have one in London each year. The London Career Forum is every May. So this year's one has already been and gone, but next year again, there'll be around 15 to 20 companies coming to London to recruit from the UK. If any of you are going to be in Japan in the summer or the winter, we have 2 career forums in Tokyo each year as well. The Tokyo Summer Career Forum has around 220 companies, so much, much bigger than the London Career Forum, if you get a chance to go along to that one. And yes, that brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for listening. If anyone has any questions, like I said, I'll be upstairs in the booth for the rest of the day, so if you'd like the slides or you'd like to ask about living, working in Japan, please feel free to come up and have a chat. So yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you, Kiko, for such an amazing talk. I think that was like a fantastic, well, it's fantastic sort of careers advice. It gave me loads of ideas about what I might want to do in the future. Maybe I shouldn't tell that to my current employer. But yeah, as Kiko said, you can go and talk to Kiko, get even more fantastic one-on-one careers advice from Kiko. I know from personal experience from learning Japanese that it's not actually as hard as it might sound. It looks like a load of squiggles on paper, but it's not that difficult. It is possible, and we also have a lot of universities here who might be able to help you in that direction if you're interested in working in Japan. So you could learn at one of these universities and then maybe find a job with Disco and Kiko. Now we've got Matthew Thomas, who's going to talk about the JET programme. At the moment, he's working related to the JET programme at the Japanese embassy here in the UK. So, welcome, Matthew.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. So everyone, good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Matthew Thomas, and I was on the JET programme for the past 4 years. I came back this summer. Japan stands for the Japan Exchange and Teaching Programme, and we offer the opportunity for young British graduates to go to Japan and work, live and work for a 1-year contract, which can be extended for 5 years. So before I start, just a quick show of hands. How many of you have heard of the JET programme? Very good. I'm glad to hear that. Out of those of you who are applying at the moment, how many of you are thinking of being ALTs, applying for the ALT position? How many of you are thinking of applying for CIRs? Okay, a couple. How many of you don't know what ALT or CIR is? A lot of you. Very good. Okay, so I'll start with you. So what is JET? So JET is the Japan Exchange and Teaching Programme. It started in 1987 and it's currently its 27th year. And over those 27 years, we have sent around 50,000 people from over 30 countries over to Japan to live and work. So from the UK, from the United States, Canada, Australia, South Africa, really all over the world. We're a Japanese government-run scheme, so we're in the public sector. And the aims of the programme are to improve foreign language teaching and to promote international understanding at a grassroots level. So we have 2 positions that are open to British graduates. This is what I was talking about earlier. The Assistant Language Teacher, so ALT, and the Coordinator for International Relations, CIR. So I'm going to talk about these roles in a bit more detail now. So ALTs, this was my job for 4 years. ALTs, their job is to work in elementary, junior, and senior high schools in Japan. Their role is to be assistants. If any of you are a bit worried about going to Japan, teaching, and being in front of the classroom, our program doesn't do that. You will be working with a Japanese teacher of English, preparing lessons, trying to promote internationalization and cultural exchange. So trying to teach the children that English is not just another subject, it's a language, it's living, people do it every day, and it's very good fun. And also, as well, to encourage students to engage and to communicate in English both inside and outside the classroom. And last one is also to participate in extracurricular activities. This is a great opportunity for you to learn more about your students and to get involved in your local community. For this position, we don't require you to speak any Japanese or to have any teaching experience. What we're looking for is people who are very motivated and very proactive and want to get out there. For the next role, so a few of you put your hands up, Coordinator of International Relations. You need to have a very high Japanese language ability, JLPT N2. That represents about 6,000 words, 1,000 kanji, and you can get this after about 600 hours of studying. So usually Japanese studies majors go for this position. CIRs work in local authorities and local councils. Their role is to welcome guests from abroad and produce and edit pamphlets in English, so for tourism, and also help promote internationalization at a local level. So here's some example of, like I said, JETs in action. So this is, you can see ALTs being involved in their schools, working in lessons. At the top, this is Sports Day, which is a very popular event in Japan. It's very fun. I encourage you all to get involved. And also, this is JETs getting involved in the local community. That's what as well we're looking for. We're not looking for people who are going to be working just in the classroom. We want people to get involved, like I said, in the local community and be very proactive. So, opportunities on JET. It's a great program, and there are great opportunities. So what can you do? You can meet new friends from Japan and all over the world. You have a chance to live and work in a fascinating country. I mean, Japan is really is very unique on the other side of the world. You get to try new things, both inside and outside of work. So here you can see an example of kendo, Japanese and martial arts. For me, I got involved in tea ceremony at my school. It's a great chance to get a new hobby and immerse yourself in Japan's unique and varied cultures. Japan has very strong regional identities, Tokyo, Osaka, Hokkaido. I was in Shikoku in Southern Islands, which is very strong local identity. So again, like I said, chance to take up a Japanese hobby. And finally as well, to live and learn a new language through the medium of karaoke. Everyone's got a song. So great opportunities. Also, we have great responsibilities as well. So these are some of the examples that what JETs get up to. Getting involved in lesson ideas and materials, plan and teaching classes, and making and marking exams. I just want to stress as well that if you want to go for the ALT position, you will be an assistant. You won't be the main teacher. There'll be someone in the classroom, a Japanese qualified teacher, who will help you along the way. You might also have to attend and coach students for speech contests. This is something that I did and I really enjoyed, and I really encourage you to get involved. Yes, then organise English-related events at your school. This is usually for elementary schools where this happens, for students at a younger age. And finally, be involved in extracurricular activities. But, and there always has to be a but. The biggest responsibility is how people conduct themselves, yes, and many Japanese people will base their ideas of the UK on the JETs. It's kind of strange when you're in the UK, especially in London, a very multicultural society. But in Japan, you will stand out a mile away, even more. So it's very important that you are very punctual, very polite, and really are very nice people. And ultimately, you'll all be acting as ambassadors for your local community and your families. So there are lots of challenges that come as well with the program. First one is negotiating the language barrier. Just again, a quick show of hands. How many of you can speak Japanese? Like a little bit of... Okay, quite a lot of you. That's good. When I got on the program, I couldn't speak any Japanese. So I got many mistakes. So our program, we do offer help in Japanese and language courses, but it can be a challenging aspect for beginners who first come. Next one, different JTs have different expectations from you. You have to be very flexible. In your school, you'll probably be the only ALT, and there'll be many English teachers, and they'll have different roles for you. Some of them might want you to have a 15-minute activity, and then that's it, time out. Others might say, okay, these 3 students have a very low level of English. I want you to stay with them and help them throughout the whole lesson. So you have to be very flexible. You work around them, they don't work around you, kind of thing. And the last one as well is culture shock, which can happen. This idea of kind of going into the unknown. You might have been to Japan before, but we tend to place JETs in very rural areas, places kind of that are off the beaten track. It's a great opportunity, but it does happen. It is the case that people do get culture shock. But don't worry. As a JET, you have a large support network, really, from your school, in your city, in your prefecture, and even at a national level. The program really has a good support network. And there also is quite a big community of JETs living in your area. And you'll be able to talk to them about simple things like, where's the best place to go shopping? Where can I get a bank account, a mobile phone? Really, there is a lot of help and support. Just ask. So, like I say, big challenges, but also big benefits, which is good. You get the chance of living and working abroad and succeeding and thriving in one of the most unique countries in the world, a very special place. Second point is also very good. Work visas, flights to and from Japan, and some initial training is all provided. We pay for that, not you. So what's very good. Also, we have very competitive starting salary. So 3.36 million yen. That's about £20,000 a year. But I think it's best to say to go to Japan on a multi-million salary. It's kind of nice to say to your friends. Also, the rewards of teaching. This is something that when I came to the program, I didn't think I would experience. But when you work in a school for a year and you see a child go from not liking English and finding it very difficult to growing throughout the year, and at the end, at their graduation, they say, I didn't like English, but your lessons were really good. That really brings it home to you, and it's a wonderful experience to feel. As well, acquiring interpersonal skills, so being able to work with lots of different people is something that employers like, and it substantially increases employability. Having Japan on your CV will set you out from the crowd. And also, I should mention as well, support from the JET Alumni Association, who are very, very active, especially in London, and like I said, they can put you in touch when you come back from Japan for future careers. I'll talk about that in a minute. But before that, JET program is looking for. So what are we looking for? What makes a good application? What makes a good JET? I know a lot of you came for this, so let's start. So desire and curiosity. What we want is, we want you to show that you have an interest, a proven interest in Japan. Every year we get applications that say, I really want to go to Japan. I love Gundam style. I want to go to Japan. I like Jackie Chan. That's great. But bring it back to Japan. So do your research, know about this, prepare your application. This happens. Awareness of the importance of international relations. For that, we want your professionalism. The JET program, it's not an extension from university. It's not a gap year. It's a full-time job. And we want to see in your application that you're treating it that way. So enthusiasm, initiative, creativity, patience, politeness. Here, what we're looking for is any sort of experience that you have working with young people, teaching, any sort of extracurricular activities, anything that you can bring to the program. Sense of humour, where would we be without that? Willingness to get involved as well. We want people who are very proactive and who can show that they've gone kind of, in their work, they've gone beyond what they were asked to do, both in the degree or at work. And finally, again, just to bring it home again, because I get this a lot, so a genuine interest in Japan. And this can be anything. This can be in your extracurricular activity. Maybe, I know a lot of you are undergraduate students, so maybe you've written an essay on Japan, something like this, like really bring it in, tell us what you've done, and a clear focus of why you want to be a JET. JET is only for a year. For me, it was 4 years, maximum 5. So you need to start in your application, tell me, why is this going to lead you? Have a brief, and it's not a big idea, but not flesh it out, but give me a kind of rough direction of where this is going to take you and what experience you're hoping to gain from it. And yeah, and the last point, very important one. Not everyone can be a JET, but there is not one type of person who does well on JET. There are many types of JETs, many types of ALTs, many types of CIRs. So lots of options. Eligibility criteria, just a few housekeeping words. First one is that you must hold a UK passport to apply with us. If you are not a UK national, please contact the Embassy of Japan in your home countries. They usually have a program. Like I said, we're in over 30 countries, so I really encourage you to get involved and talk to them. You also need to hold a bachelor's degree by July 2015. So for third years or recent graduates, you're welcome to apply. And the last one is to have not lived in Japan for 6 years or more in the past 10. We need that one. So those are the eligibility. So this is the application calendar. I'll go over briefly. So the applications are open now. The deadline is on November the 28th at 6 p.m. GMT. They close at 6 p.m. GMT. My supervisor wanted me to emphasize that that's the time they close, so November 28th. We'll look through them over Christmas, and then in January, we will call you for interviews. Interviews can be at the Embassy of Japan in the UK or in the Consulate of Japan in Edinburgh. So we'll interview you, usually a 20-minute interview, a chance for you to talk and tell us more about yourselves and why you want to be on the programme. Then in April, we'll announce your results, yay or nay, whether you're in or out. And in May, we'll tell you your placements, which city in Japan you want to go. In your application form, you can put preferences down, and you can start doing some initial research of where you'd like to go in Japan and tell us about that. We'd be very interested. And then in July, you have a pre-departure orientation. So this is a chance where all the new JETs meet in London before leaving on the programme. They'll get some initial training, some learning about Japan and Japanese, and also teaching in schools. It's usually for 2 or 3 days before departure in August to Japan. Like I said, we pay for the flights, so this is something that you all get to do. And then when you arrive in Tokyo, you have a second round of orientation, a second round of teaching experience, practice, before going to your host prefectures and starting usually in September. So I was talking about this. What do alumni do? What do people do after JET? Well, as you can see, they work pretty much everywhere. We got people in the civil service, we have people teaching, people in the private sector, and that's really what I want to bring home to you, is that the JET program is a plus on any career option, whether you're thinking of going into the public sector, the private sector, the voluntary sector, big business, small, medium enterprise, working in Japan. It's a huge plus on any CV. And like I said, you can find a JET in almost every sector. Okay, and it's going to bring me up just to the end. I'll take a few questions if we've got time, but just to bring it home to you, this is the website where you can access our application form. The closing date is Friday, the 28th of November at 6 p.m. Please get your applications in on time. If any of you have got any questions later on when you go home, thinking, I should have asked this question, please drop us an email or give us a ring. We'd be more than happy to answer. And don't forget to post your applications by the deadline, again, 28th of November, at the address below. That's all from me. Thank you very much. Thank you.